Good morning. Welcome to the Friday edition of E.W. Jackson for America. Great to be with you again today. Okay, you see, as I'm wearing my church shirt because, of course, the weekend is coming up. I will be at my church. Hey, I don't think I even comb my hair. Forgive me for grooming in front of you all. But it gets a little busy. But I will be at my church on Sunday. I will not be preaching. Reverend Roger Cheeks is my guest speaker on Sunday because I'm giving the keynote address on Monday at the Martin Luther King Leadership Breakfast, and I'm going to be spending my time this weekend preparing for that. I will be there, but I will not be preaching. I'm looking forward to hearing what Reverend Roger Cheeks has to say on Sunday. But I would invite you to come on by because we're still the same church. I'm still the same pastor, and I will be there. 943 Canal Drive, Chesapeake, Virginia. The service begins at 11 a.m. I don't know whether we'll be live streaming or not. I got to re-examine that. I got to see what, because sometimes when I have guests, I don't live stream because sometimes the guests don't particularly want to do that, but we'll figure that out. For those of you, either way, we will have something on the air. If it is not the live sermon that is going forth, it'll be one of my old messages that will be playing on Sunday morning. So either way, tune in. I have to tell you, I probably never said this before, but I don't really, how can I say this properly? Rand Paul's not one of my favorite politicians. He made some comments on TikTok about TikTok. And I guess he's made them before. And it got me thinking about things he said in the past that I haven't liked either, because I think he's soft on Iran, and he thought that we didn't have any business trying to stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon and all that. He's probably the only person in the U.S. Senate who believes that. But he made a fundamental mistake that I keep hearing people make, and it's not honest. I am not in favor of banning TikTok. Well, neither am I. I'm not in favor of banning TikTok. But what they've done is, in order to protect TikTok, they've reduced the argument to, you want to ban TikTok, you want to do away with TikTok, no, we want to get Chinese influence out of TikTok. And if the Chinese are not willing to divest themselves of influence in TikTok, of ownership, and forget influence, ownership in TikTok, they've got to go. And really, that's what it boils down to. They'll be the ones who are banning themselves. But the finger gets pointed at conservatives like me as if we're censors and we want to, you want to ban free speech. I don't care. Have at it. But I don't want the communist Chinese using our data, manipulating our children, insinuating their way into our culture. And, he said something in an interview with Lawrence Jones this morning that I found particularly irritating. He says, everybody's talking about communists. I think it's overstated. Really? You think that the threat of communist China is overstated? I mean, do you know the history of communism? Do you know anything about what that ideology produces? Do you know anything about what they're trying to do around the world? Do you know anything about them buying up industries in our country, buying up land in our country, insinuating themselves into the university system of our country, setting up police, in effect, Chinese police stations in our cities? I mean, what? I just thought that was one of just the most oblivious comments I've ever heard coming from somebody who purports to be a prominent politician in America. I mean, I'm thinking, what reality are you living in? So needless to say, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to overstate it because sometimes Rand Paul gets it right, and I appreciate that. And Rand Paul is a libertarian more than a conservative, and I'm not a libertarian. I am a Christian worldview conservative, and that's different than being a libertarian because libertarians are more laissez-faire, live and let live, do whatever you want to do. I am not in favor of legalizing drugs. I am not in favor of legalizing prostitution. I am not in favor of giving legal sanction to behaviors that I think degenerate the culture. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to give somebody the death penalty because they go out and get a prostitute, or give somebody the death penalty because they smoke a marijuana cigarette or anything like that. I'm not in favor of these draconian laws that ruin people's lives over recreational use of drugs, which is something I myself was guilty of before I came to Christ. So my life wasn't ruined by it because I didn't get caught. But I didn't use powder drugs, by the way. Not that it was beneath me. It's just I just really think the hand of God was on me just to protect me. So I never used heroin or cocaine or methamphetamines or any of that stuff. But even for people who do, I'm not in favor of putting them in jail 10 years for it. But I'm also not in favor of a society saying, yeah, do whatever you want to do. Because I think that's walking the road of the Roman Empire. That's where you start to so denigrate the culture, and you start to so remove any sense of moral standards that you just implode. And I mean, we are always in danger of doing that with now, did you hear about this new thing now that they've got adults who want to walk around with stuffed animals to comfort them? So you just get this kind of degeneration of the culture, a kind of madness that seeps in when you go libertarian. I didn't mean to get into all this stuff about libertarianism. I know there's some libertarians who would say, well, wait a minute, we're pro-life and all of that. But libertarianism is not the same as Christian biblical worldview conservatism. I think we need to make clear. Now, by the way, I think every American who appreciates our system has a streak of libertarianism in them, because we all want the government to pretty much stay out of our lives to the fullest extent possible. And I feel the same way. I really do. That's why I'm saying I'm not in favor of draconian punishments for people because they use recreational drugs, ruining their lives, destroying them, completely decimating their reputation so that they can never do anything decent with their lives again. I'm not in favor of that. But I'm also not in favor of changing standards so that, in effect, wrong is okay, evil is okay, darkness is okay, do whatever you want to do. I think every culture has got to have a set of norms and values that help to uphold that culture and help to perpetuate it. And when you start to absorb, when you start to embrace, when you start to adopt norms that are degenerative, norms that cause decay, you are asking for trouble. You are asking for the end of your society. And I think that's where libertarians just don't understand that. And biblical worldview Christians do. So, at any rate, so I'm not a big fan of Rand Paul. I thought Ron Paul had some good points to make, but I wasn't a big fan. I wasn't a devoted follower of Ron Paul either. So my point is, let's leave, because this was not intended to be any kind of attack on Rand Paul. Because, like I said, I mean, there's some things that he says that I fully agree with. But I think this TikTok thing is a matter of national security. I do not believe that the threat of communist China is overblown in the least. I think it's underemphasized, because I think if it were not underemphasized, we wouldn't have communist Chinese owning Smithfield Foods, which is right here in my area, one of the biggest food distributors in the United States of America. Can you imagine if we got into a hot war or even increased tension with China and they've got control of our food processes? You say, oh, communism, it's overblown. Give me a break. When you're competing with people who are adversaries, enemies, who operate on a different, and this is why they're enemies generally, they operate on a whole different system of morals and values than you do. The things that you would not consider doing, they will do because they don't have the same moral compunctions or restraints that you have. Of course they're a threat. Of course they're a threat. And allowing them to use TikTok to brainwash, to indoctrinate, really to empty our kids of all sense of American morale and strength and courage and virtue and valor and all of these things that have helped our country to become the greatest nation in the history of mankind, allowing them inside our country to speak to hundreds of millions of people. Well, we only have 300 million people in our country, but my understanding is you've got about 170 million people signed up for TikTok. I mean, that's over half the country. And allowing them to do that, and then to do all these other things I just mentioned, and to say that's overblown is, to me, foolishness. And frankly, it irritated me to hear him come on national television and say something that's stupid. Because to me, it is stupid. So look, I'm on TikTok now. I just joined TikTok, I think about a month ago, maybe a couple months ago. It hasn't been long. Once the law was passed that they have to divest, and that divestiture is supposed to take place by Sunday. And I don't know how in the world President Trump thinks that he can, by some kind of executive order, give them more time. I haven't read the law, but unless the law has a provision that allows the president to somehow extend the amount of time that they are given to divest, they have to divest by this Sunday, is my understanding. And if they haven't, then they're closed down. I don't know how the president can avoid that. The Supreme Court hasn't handed down a ruling yet, even though they asked them to. It does appear that the Supreme Court is not going to get involved in this. I don't know. But I don't see any way at all that the Supreme Court can say that this law is unconstitutional. I don't see it. Because I don't see how the Supreme Court can step into a matter of national security and say, well, we're going to decide this is not a matter of national security. And we're going to, here again, we're not talking about domestic politics, okay? When a FISA court says we're going to spy on E.W. Jackson because we think he's a threat to national security, and I take that to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says we're not going to deal with that because that's a matter of national security. Well, that's not what I'm talking about. Why? Because I'm an American citizen. And they do have a right to examine whether the government's efforts to spy on me are appropriate. But if you're talking about a government program to try to figure out what the Chinese are doing and how they're infiltrating our country, the Supreme Court doesn't have any business saying, well, you can't do that. You're going too far. That's a matter strictly for the executive branch operating under the laws passed by Congress. And in my view, the Supreme Court can't be, that's like Supreme Court saying you can't declare war on this country because we don't think that they're worthy of fighting. I mean, they're not going to do that. They'd be stupid to do that because they would be encroaching on what I consider to be the absolute jurisdiction of other branches that they have nothing to do. With which they have nothing to do when it comes to national security. So I can't imagine them saying, well, we don't think you can close TikTok down because we don't think it's a matter of national security. I hope we wouldn't get a decision that stupid out of the Supreme Court. And I would hope that a president would look at that and say, these people are precipitating a constitutional crisis because they don't have any right to pass on national security matters when we are trying to keep the country and keep our citizens safe. Again, we're not talking about a domestic matter. We're talking about a foreign adversary and enemy that is infiltrating our country in a variety of ways. Well, I hope I've made myself clear on this. I mean, look, even Democrats voted for this law that requires that TikTok divest itself of ByteDance, or ByteDance get out of TikTok. And notice, the Communist Chinese don't want to give it up. And many are arguing, and I think their argument is valid, it's because they have top secret algorithms that they are using to cull data from the American people that they are using to better understand how to undermine us, how to defeat us, how to discredit us, how to hurt us, how to stop us. That's what they're using the data for. The data is not being used by a company for marketing purposes. It's being used by the Communist Chinese for military and national security purposes for their agenda. I mean, to me, this is a no-brainer. I don't understand how somebody as smart as Rand Paul doesn't get that. And for all those people who are making money off TikTok, if TikTok folds, here's what I say. Too bad. Find another venue. Because the fate of our country is more important than you making money. Now, I don't have any problem with people making money. Good. Make as much of it as you can if you're doing it honestly. I mean it. Make as much of it as you can. I don't have a problem with that at all. But I do have a problem with selling our country down the river so that somebody can make money. That's why I have a major problem with the NBA. I believe the NBA is an enemy of the American people, because I think they'd be willing to sell our country down the river for communist China's, for whatever they can get from the communist Chinese. I'm serious. I believe that. That's why, what's the guy? Cantor, he changed his name to Cantor Freedom. But that's why he ended up out of the NBA. I mean, I wasn't following. I don't know that he was a star player. But one thing is for sure, they didn't like him speaking up against the NBA's consorting with communist China and speaking up against radical Islam. They didn't like that at all. They don't mind people speaking up at all this stupid Black Lives Matter nonsense with these communists running around under the guise of racial justice, promoting a bunch of Marxist ideas. They didn't have a problem with that. They would open up their wallets for that. But Eric Cantor is saying, look, the communist Chinese are a threat to our country. They're a threat to liberty. They're a threat to humanity. Oh, you don't understand. You guys say stupid LeBron James. You don't understand. You're speaking. I mean, when are we going to come to grips with the fact that the fact that you can bounce a rubber ball on a wooden floor in an entertaining way and avoid people trying to take that ball from you and put that ball into a round metal rim with rope at the hanging off of it, the fact that you can do that, does it make you an icon or a fount of wisdom? It just means you can do what I just said you can do. You bounce the ball real good, you throw that ball real good, and you can put that ball in that round rim real good. You can do all that real good. And you can avoid having people take it from you. You do all of that. You do very well. Okay. So now get out of my way and let me talk to somebody who has something to say. Because the fact that you can do that, and maybe you do have something to say, but the fact that you don't automatically have something to say because you can do that. So don't get me wrong. I'm not denigrating the intelligence of a basketball player Remember the football player? I don't know whether he's still playing, but brilliant mathematician, brilliant mind. I mean, doing high level mathematics. I'm not saying that you can't be bright and capable, but I tell you what, it's not because you can play basketball or football. That just gives you a platform for being heard. And sometimes it gives you a platform for saying some of the dumbest things that have ever been said, perhaps in the history of mankind, like LeBron James. Great basketball player, making plenty of money as a huckster, dumb as a rock. Just as stupid as he can be. And selling the country out and lecturing us. Go live in communist China. You think it's so great? And go and leave America. You think it's so bad? Give it a shot. I'll tell you, folks, this stuff is just... So, look, we'll see what happens. I'm on TikTok. I haven't done my program, but I'm planning to go on TikTok and say, I'd rather see TikTok close than see communism, to see the Chinese Communist Party have access to the American people through that entity. I'd rather see it closed down. I'm not in favor of banning speech or banning TikTok, but I am in favor of keeping the communist Chinese out of our country's national security and cultural apparatus. I think they ought to be forced to divest of Smithfield Foods. I don't trust these people controlling our food sources. Are you kidding me? You think it'd be beneath them to poison us? I don't. Why wouldn't they? They certainly don't have God to answer to. I was reading Alexander Solzhenitsyn's his first book, Gulag Archipelago, and he was pointing out that when the Russian communists began to interrogate people and question people and torture people and incarcerate people and condemn people to labor camps and all of that, when they took power and they took it with an iron fist, he said they would say to people who had been believing in God and people who'd been, Russian Orthodox believers and other believers, and they would say to them, and there is no God, so we can do to you whatever we want to do. And there's nothing you can do about it. And no God's going to come rescue you because there is no God. Well, that's the same way the Chinese communists feel. As I've said before, and you know how strongly I feel about these matters, but I've said before, I'm not going to hurt anybody, kill anybody, harm anybody, torture anybody. I'm not doing that. Why? Because there is a God. And we have to answer to him. Well, there's that, and the fact that the love of God has been shed abroad in our hearts through the Holy Spirit, and love won't allow you to do that. What we want to do is persuade people. And don't get me wrong, I want to lock people up who are committing crimes and harming others, certainly, absolutely. With a due process of law, they can lose their liberty, they can lose their property, they can lose their life, if that's what the law deems appropriate based upon their behavior. But I'm not interested in harming people just because they disagree with me. But the communists don't have any such restraints because they think anything is moral as long as it furthers their cause. What is immoral is to do what doesn't further the cause. So, compared to the fate and future of my country and looking at the potential of a hot war with China. And by the way, let me say something about this too. I didn't expect to spend this much time on this, but it's worth it. I've mentioned this before, the potential of a hot war with China, and don't get me wrong, I have not experienced combat, as I've told you all, but I have friends who have. And I'll tell you something. You'd have to be a fool to think that entering into a war with communist China would be something to be desirable. You'd have to be a fool to believe that. Because I think we could be talking about devastation unlike anything we've ever seen, anything the world's ever seen. But I happen to believe that the best way to avoid that is to operate with such strength and to be so unyielding in our unwillingness to allow China to undermine us from within, that they are held at bay because they see in America a nation of great strength internally and externally. In other words, they know that internally we are strong, we are unified, we are committed to our way of life, our constitutional republic and individual liberty, that we are committed to that, and that we will fight to the death to protect it. And that we're not going to allow any enemy to come in here and brainwash our people, use our institutions, take over our food sources, buy property next to our most sensitive national security sites. We're not letting anybody do that, period. If we begin to do that internally and then project power around the world, all those Chinese idiots who are believing Karl Marx will look at that and say, man, we don't want to mess with them. We don't want to mess with them. These people are loaded for bear. I mean, we update all of our nuclear arsenal. We have it at the ready. We build every possible defense mechanism we can. Instead of ridiculing something like Star Wars, the dome that has saved Israel so much devastation, we create every defense mechanism we can. We prepare to defend ourselves in outer space. And we send the message to communist China and to the world, don't mess with America. Don't mess with them. That's the best way to avoid having a hot war. Because the world knows if you do that and America unleashes its tremendous power, we may not survive it. But all this mealy-mouthed, sending your son to do deals with communist China and pardoning communist Chinese and letting people go accused of spying and allowing them to buy up our industries and all of that sends a signal, you know what? They're weak from within. We've got influence in their universities. We got control of a lot of their food. We own lots of land. We've got a big place in their media. We can do tremendous damage from within. We can so weaken them that if we got into a hot war, they would collapse from within. Just like France did when the Nazis attacked France and France fell in 6 weeks, not because they didn't have the munitions, not because they didn't have to fight the soldiers, but because their morale was broken. They were broken from within. So I don't know what's going to happen with TikTok. I know this. There's no compromising in getting China out of it, period. And I certainly hope. I defer to Donald Trump as a negotiator, but I defer to no one as a hawk when it comes to the national security of our country. I defer to nobody. Nobody. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no compromising in getting China out of the Communist Chinese Party, and that's China, getting them out of TikTok. There's no compromise. Either we do that or TikTok closes, period. Now, would I rather TikTok remain open without Chinese involvement and influence? Yes. That's why I say nobody's advocating for a ban, or at least I'm not. I'm advocating for common sense national security action to protect the American people and to protect our country against further infiltration by the Chinese. Okay. Let me move on. I think you all know where I stand on this. the president did a closing statement, sort of a final statement, and I have to confess, I didn't watch it. You know, I've watched many of his State of the Union addresses and addresses so that I could come on and comment to you and tell you what I thought. I couldn't do another one. I really made a conscious decision. I don't want to hear it. And from what I've heard about what he said, it was nothing but lies from start to finish. I mean, these people are demonic. And I didn't want to take that stuff into my spirit. But it's interesting. His final interview was with Lawrence O'Donnell of MSNBC. That was his final interview as president of the United States. That's interesting that he chose Lawrence O'Donnell. Because, you know, Lawrence O'Donnell is a self-professed socialist. He said it on numerous occasions. He is a socialist. You can look it up for yourself. And I think he was asked that by a reporter. He said, "You call yourself a socialist?" He said, "Yes." And then he went on to talk about how he thought European socialism was superior to what we have. I mean, it's interesting that that's who he chose to interview with. Now, does Biden know that Lawrence O'Donnell is a socialist? I don't know whether Biden does, but I'll tell you what, the team of people around him know. And they set this interview up, not Joe Biden himself. So his closing interview is with a socialist. And to me, that tells you everything. That's where the Democrat Party is. That's where they want to take the country. That's who they are. And socialism is nothing but warmed over Marxism. That's all. It's just Marxist communist ideology with a softer face. That's all it is. And they were talking, they said, well, you know, Social Security is a socialist project. No, it's not. That's not the way it was conceived. It was conceived to be a trust fund that people paid into over their lifetime so that when they retired and were no longer capable of earning income, they could receive from that trust fund payments based upon what they had paid in. Now, that's where it started. Of course, it's very different than that now because we've got a lot more people collecting Social Security than we have in the workforce. Or I should say, the ratio is much smaller. I think we still have more people in the workforce, but the ratio is much smaller and getting smaller always. I forget the exact number, but if I'm not mistaken, when Social Security was started, we had 8 workers for every 1 person who needed Social Security. Now I think it's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. It might be 2-to-1, but it's come way down. So you got a lot of people collecting Social Security and far fewer people in the workforce to support it. So there is no trust fund. We're collecting money and paying it out, collecting money and paying it out, collecting money and paying it out. But it's not a socialist program. It's not from each according to his ability to each according to his need. People are collecting Social Security based upon what Elon Musk is making. They're collecting Social Security based upon what they made throughout the course of their work history. But again, socialist and Joe Biden is an empty suit, but I think he just as soon be a socialist as anything else because I don't think the man has any kind of moral core. If socialism will reward him and his family with money and power and influence and a comfortable life when he leaves the presidency, he'll be a socialist, a communist, whatever he needs to be. I'm sure he probably sold Xi Jinping on the fact that, you know, hey, I'll be your socialist, I'll be your communist, I'll be your Marxist. I don't know whether you all saw Tombstone, but you remember the line by Val Kilmer playing Doc Holliday when he said to one of the bad guys who were who wasn't Curly Bill. It was Ringo. He said to him when Ringo was threatening to have a shootout with some of Wyatt Earp's men, Doc Holliday steps up and says, comes out of the barbershop and said, "I'll be your Huckleberry. That's just my game." Meaning, try your luck on me. But, you know, I I think that that just came to mind. Forgive the free association, but Biden saying to Xi Jinping, "I'll be your Marxist. That's just my game. Only he's not interested in fighting him. He's interested in being paid by him." Okay, one other thing. I have to tell you, folks, I had never heard of this woman that DeSantis, I shouldn't say I've never heard of her. I've heard of her, but I didn't really know her. Didn't know anything about her. But apparently Attorney General Ashley Moody of Florida, wow. DeSantis he's appointing her to replace Marco Rubio as United States Senator from Florida. And I tell you, when he walked through her credentials, you know what I thought to myself? I'm more impressed with her than I am with Marco Rubio. I mean, this woman is apparently strong. Strong, man. I mean, she is strong. And I thought, whoa. You know, I didn't support DeSantis because obviously I ran myself. And then by the time I was done with my race, was clear I wasn't going to get any traction. I, of course, went back to supporting Trump. But I like Ron DeSantis. I like him as a man, as a politician. I don't know whether he had an evolution, because I've heard people say that when he was in Congress, he wasn't this conservative. But I'll tell you what, boy, he's in tall grass now. Man, he is walking among the giants now. He seems to be really clear on who he is and where he stands. He couldn't convey that to the American people enough to overcome Donald Trump, obviously. I think he just stepped up beyond where maybe his calling is, but and I would know something about that. So, but this woman, Attorney General Ashley Moody, he talked about all the time she has demonstrated conservative principle. I mean, she defended the people of Florida against all of this COVID craziness. She was there for that. She fought the Biden administration tooth and nail on the border. Every time she was needed, I mean, she stepped up with enthusiasm to advance conservative constitutional principles. And by the time he got finished laying out all the things that she did, I thought, man, where have you been all my life? You know, this is great. I thought, what a sterling choice. I mean, there was no question whatsoever. Now, here again, wait a minute, I say here again. I don't know everything about where she stands. I don't think he mentioned the life issue. I don't recall if he did. And I don't think he mentioned the gender issue. I don't recall if he did. But if everything else he said about her is true, I'd have a hard time believing that she'd be soft on those issues. So, congratulations to Ashley Moody on your appointment as U.S. Senator, and I hope you are successful as a U.S. Senator. I don't know when she will come up for election. I think she has to, whenever Marco Rubio was due to run again, and I think he just ran again 2 years, ran 2 years ago, didn't he? So I think she may have 4 years to finish. I'm not quite clear on that. Let me see if I can figure that out. But I hope she has a successful run as the appointed replacement and then gets reelected to be the United States Senator from Florida. You know, I have to tell you, when I was listening to Ron DeSantis talking about Ashley Moody, you know what I felt? I felt jealous. No, not jealous of her. No. I felt jealous for Florida. Because I thought to myself, those are the kind of leaders we need in Virginia. And I thought, oh, Lord, please don't let Virginia go the way of Maryland or worse. Let us go the way of Florida. Man, Florida is just, wow. I mean, Ron DeSantis has really revolutionized Florida. He really has. He really has. Because I think he has done, in some ways, what I believe Donald Trump needs to do in the second term. I think Ron DeSantis has actually impacted the culture of Florida. By taking the strong stance he's taken, he's actually impacted the culture of Florida. That Florida is culturally a more conservative state. Now, I may be overstating that, but I don't think I am. It feels that way to me. I mean, he took on Disney. When was the last time a governor did that? And brought them to heel with their pedophile promoting nonsense. Yeah, I said it because it's the truth. Disney's hired pedophiles, and don't censor me, YouTube, and don't censor me, Facebook, because it's the truth. You look it up. Disney has hired pedophiles, people they knew were pedophiles and they knew were convicted of abusing children. I don't know what's wrong with those people. It's a sad situation because, Mickey and Minnie they're now associated with a bunch of sexual perverts. But here again, Ron DeSantis took them on. And this woman, Ashley Judd, has been there with him every step of the way. Let's see, how long does she had, what's her name, Ashley Moore, right? Let's see, Ash Moody. How long does she have? Well, wow, it's not popping up. But, that'll be easy for you to find. I'm just curious about it myself. I'm kind of thinking aloud here and trying to find the answer to that. But I don't know. So I don't know when she comes up for election. But I'm guessing, because I'm pretty sure Marco Rubio, was it 2 years ago or 4 years ago that he ran? Oh, you know what? Oh, wait a minute. Because he ran for president in 2016, and he dropped out and went back and picked up his Senate seat. So that would, 6-year term, that would have put him at 2022. So yeah, he ran 2 years ago. So she's got 4 years left, unless they have to have a special election. I don't think they do, but I think she has 4 years left. So yeah, so she won't be up for re-election until 2028. And I hope she serves well and gets elected. But yeah, I felt a little bit jealous, frankly, because I thought, man, that's the kind of leadership we need. And by the way, we have a good attorney general in Virginia. I don't know him well, but he seems to be doing a good job, and I hope he continues that. He's running for re-election. I will definitely vote for it. I have seen no reason why I wouldn't. But I hope that he is reelected. But Virginia is not Florida. And I would love for it to be. And that's the sense in which I felt a little jealous. And I'll tell you what, Governor Youngkin is not Ron DeSantis. No, he's just not. Ron DeSantis is no needle threader. I mean, he's clear and bold. For example, I could be wrong about this, so if I am, please correct me. E.W. Jackson at ewjackson.com. I don't think Ron DeSantis has met with the Log Cabin Club, the Republican homosexual group. If he has, I haven't heard about it. But I tell you what, Governor Youngkin did. He's tried to work with them here in Virginia. Big mistake. Big mistake. It's like I said, you want to rail about the whole transgender thing and approaching children, but that's the doorway to it. And the more you recognize the legitimacy of homosexuality, the less credible you are in suggesting that other sexual agenda items that this whole movement has somehow shoot that's too far. Too late. You open the barn door, the horse is out. And if you really want to deal with this, you got to close that barn door. No conservative ought to be meeting with the Log Cabin Club. I had them approach me one time and want to meet with me. I really thought about it, but I realized no, I can't do that because it is suggesting that there is legitimacy to the way they live, and there is not. It is an abomination in the sight of God. Now, that's not Bishop Jackson's opinion. And people say, oh, see, he's a hater. He's anti-gay. No, I'm not. I'm pro-Bible. So praise God for Ron DeSantis. And I hope the whole country has leaders like that and like Ashley Moody, based upon what I've just heard about her. Sort of we went into her background for the first time, and man, like I said, she's strong. she's strong. All right, just a couple of other quick things in this regard. Massachusetts, for example, which I escaped in 20, when did we leave? 2018. Yeah. No, what am I saying? When did we leave? Oh my goodness, 2018. What in the world? Boy, my math is really off. In 1998, 2018, 1998, we left Massachusetts. Massachusetts has a representative from Worcester on the Worcester City Council who is taking a month off due to emotional trauma from transphobia. Now, this is the madness that has entered our culture. And here's what the problem is. Are you ready for this? Here's what the problem is. This person, this guy, well, I don't know whether, here again, forgive me, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck. I don't know whether, you get confused. Is this a guy trying to be a woman? Is this a woman trying to be a guy? What you know is it's just a confused person. But his name is Thu Nguyen, spelled Nguyen. His problem is his chosen pronoun is it. No, I kid you not. It. I-T. That is his chosen pronoun. Assuming it's a guy trying to be a girl, I guess. I don't know. That is his chosen pronoun. And people are not using it. And it's caused him to be traumatized. Nobody's calling me it. I'm being misgendered because I'm not being called it. You can't make this stuff up. He needs a month off to get over the trauma of not being called it. And that after that's over, maybe people take time to search their consciences and realize he really isn't it. Lord, help us, deliver us from this madness. You know, I have a constitutional amendment that I'm going to propose that recognizes only two genders, male and female. And again, people can live any kind of way they want to. They can change their names. They can put on whatever clothes they want. They're free to do that. But what this constitutional amendment would prohibit is you cannot then sue people who won't call you it. You can't say, Your Honor, I demand that I be called it. And I demand that the people who won't call me it pay me $1 million because they won't call me it. Lord, help our beloved country and deliver us from these demonic people and their demonic agenda. Well, that's going to do it. I'll be at church this coming Sunday. Anybody in my area, come on over. And even if you're from Hawaii or Alaska, fly on in. I'd love to see you. 943 Canal Drive in the Deep Creek section of Chesapeake. 943 Canal Drive. We'll be there at 11 a.m. on Sunday. And by the way, Like I said, I will be there even though I'm not preaching. Reverend Roger Cheeks, and he is some preacher. You'll love him. But don't forget, we are still selling tickets for the breakfast on Monday. Yes, we are still selling tickets. We will sell tickets as of close of business today. So if you want to come to that breakfast, go to the website and sign up now. This is the final day you have to be a part of the breakfast. We're going to have a huge crowd there. It's going to be a great event, but we're trying to accommodate. Every year we have all these last minute people who want to come, and we're trying to accommodate that. But today is it. So go to thecall.org, and you can buy tickets there. I'm the keynote speaker. That's why I'm not preaching on Sunday, because I'm devoting all my time and prayer and energy to making sure that I say what the Lord has for me to say on Monday to this very, very diverse crowd of people who are going to be there. When I say diverse, I don't mean just racially. I mean in terms of their thinking. That's what I'm getting at. And I'm going to have an opportunity to speak into the lives of people who may come to this breakfast with a very different perspective of mine. I hope they'll leave agreeing with me. So it should be interesting. So God bless each and every one of you. I love you. I'm praying for you. Please pray for me. We solicit your prayers. I didn't even mention finances, but don't forget, everything we do, folks, requires money. The studio I'm sitting in right now probably cost $50,000 all told. It went through 3 iterations. The first one ran about 5, the second one ran about 20, and then the last one ran about 50. So I probably spent more than $50,000 on studio equipment and all the cameras and all the stuff. And I'm already at a point where we need to improve some things. So like I said, so I can do a more diverse program for you and show you things. But all that stuff costs money. If you want to contribute to us, go to standamerica.us. I'm still believing God for my first $1 million donor. I believe there'll be a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth and on. But I'm believing God for my first $1 million donor. Maybe you are going to be that first $1 million donor to help us rebuild the family, to help us press educational choice, to help us back law enforcement and their willingness to be the front line against the evil that threatens us. The constitutional amendments to end this anchor baby craziness, to end this gender craziness, to establish that life begins at conception, and to define marriage as a union between one man and one woman. Yeah, that's it. I know you're really going for the gusto, aren't you? That's exactly right. We're not playing games. I'm tired of being on the defensive. I want to put them on the defensive. Make them start answering for the crazy stuff they believe in, as opposed to always answering and always being on the defensive and always try to defend. I'm not anti-gay. Please. I've had enough of that. I don't care what they say. It's time to press an American agenda for the American people, and then let all these crazies who hate our country, hate our Constitution, hate God, hate the Bible, hate truth, let them defend and explain why they're so full of hatred. Stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up. Because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side. God bless everybody.